I want you to sit down and truly listen to this with both your heart and your reason, because there's a method I'm about to share with you. It's not mainstream, not sold in any course, nor labeled as modern science. Yet it's so effective that it was once avoided in therapy sessions, not because it was wrong, but because it was too right. Not because it didn't help, but because it couldn't be controlled, couldn't be packaged into a commercial product. This method doesn't go through layers of complex analysis, nor does it require you to understand anything new. It's strangely simple and at the same time so profound that it can transform the way you live. I'm telling you this because I believe you are deep enough to receive it. I realized one thing: true transformation does not come from thinking more. It doesn't lie in trying to understand more thoroughly or in controlling every stream of thought running through your mind. True transformation only begins when you stop, when you fall silent, when you are fully present in each moment and observe with awareness. This is not a game of intellect. It is a return to something simple you've long forgotten: yourself. This so-called brain hack doesn't require complexity. It only requires simplicity, discipline, and a little courage to face yourself. Let me be honest with you, the mind is like a sword. In the hands of the awakened, it brings peace. In the hands of the unaware, it brings destruction. And unfortunately, most people go through life never being taught how to wield that sword. They believe every thought they have, they chase every emotion they feel, and then they mistake the voice in their mind for who they are. But no, that is the first illusion and the most dangerous one. You are not your mind. You are the one observing the mind. I was once drowned in the stories my mind created. Every fear, every doubt, every imagination all became truth in my head. But then I realized I wasn't suffering because of the world. I was suffering because I had trapped myself in an endless internal monologue. Imagine this: you're sitting beside a river. On the water's surface, leaves drift by. Those are your thoughts. Some are light, some heavy, but you are not the leaves. You are the one sitting there, silently watching. But you know what? Most of us have forgotten that place. We've jumped into the river, trying to catch every leaf, trying to fix them, trying to control, and we get swept away. That is suffering. I'm telling you this so you can remember, you are not the content of your mind. You are the awareness behind everything. In the Shaolin tradition, I was taught that training is not about defeating others, but about mastering the inner battlefield, between silence and noise, between stillness and chaos, between presence and distraction. Victory doesn't lie in beating someone, it lies in not being controlled by the mind. The monks meditate not to retreat from life, but to awaken to it through silence, through observation, through repetition until they no longer get swept away by the storms of thought. When you begin to sit in silence, you'll notice something strange. Thoughts come and go like waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce. But if you don't react, don't judge, simply observe, a gap starts to appear between you and them. And that gap, that is freedom. That's when you begin to understand, I am the witness, not the thinker. I am the sky, not the clouds. And when this awareness takes root, everything changes. You no longer scramble to fix every emotion. You let them pass, like the wind through a bamboo forest. The stalks bend with the wind, but the roots remain steady. That is the state you can reach, not through intellect, but through awareness. I'm telling you this not to teach you how to analyze another leaf, but to remind you, you are the one watching the leaf, not the leaf itself. There's no need to force thoughts to disappear. Outgrow them with your awareness. No need to fight your mind. Sit still and watch. Everything you need, you already have. Not in the external world, but in the silence between two thoughts. And only when you stop long enough to listen, will you find what you've long believed you had to run everywhere to search for. I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on this. How many times in your life have you let a single negative thought pass through your mind and immediately believed it was true? How often have you allowed a wave of sadness or anxiety to take over your mood entirely, making you question your own worth? I'm not saying this to blame you, but to share a truth that took me a long time to discover. Your mind is not you. What the mind creates, whether memories, imaginations, or fleeting emotions, does not define who you truly are. These are only phenomena, like clouds drifting across the sky, like waves lapping against the shore. They come and go, but you remain the silent observer. I lived for years under the belief that every thought I had must be right, that if I felt uneasy, something must be wrong. I used to feel lost, tossed around by thousands of unanswered questions my mind kept generating. But then I learned an important lesson, and today I want to share it with you. The problem isn't the thoughts. The problem is that you've identified with them. You no longer see the boundary between yourself and your mind, and it is in that moment that suffering begins. Imagine you're sitting beside a stream. On the surface of the water, countless leaves float by. These are your thoughts, emotions, memories. Some are beautiful, others faded, some soaked in fear or regret, but you are not those leaves. You are the one sitting by the stream, watching them pass. When you hold on to that place, you are free. But the moment you jump into the stream, trying to grasp each leaf, trying to fix, analyze, or fight them, you get swept away. And you suffer not because the leaves are good or bad, but because you forgot you were never the leaves to begin with. I'm telling you this because I too once forgot. I used to believe the fear in my mind was a sign I would fail. I used to think that the sad memories were proof that I wasn't good enough. But then when I learned to sit still, to simply observe without reacting, I began to notice a gap forming. It wasn't a big gap, but it was enough for me to realize I am not the one thinking, I am the one witnessing the thinking. And from that very moment, I began to step into freedom, not by erasing the mind, but by ceasing to identify with it. And I hope that you too can begin that journey gently, deeply, from this very moment. There's a lesson I've come to understand deeply, not on any external battlefield, but within my own inner world. The greatest victory in life doesn't come from physical strength, nor from controlling others. It comes the moment I stop letting my mind control me. It may sound simple, but if you've ever been swept up by a wave of negative thoughts, if you've ever let impulsive emotions dictate your actions, if you've ever said something you didn't mean just because you were triggered, then you know exactly how hard this truly is. I used to think I was strong when I could argue back, when I could react faster, respond more sharply. But the more I did that, the more empty I felt inside, fragile, easily hurt, easily shattered by even the smallest disturbance. That wasn't strength. It was dependence. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you could sit still in the middle of chaos and not be swept away? If you could watch a negative thought arise but not chase it, not react to it, just see it and let it pass? That is awareness. And from that state, I began to feel a very different kind of power. A silent yet profound strength that harms no one, needs to conquer no one, and simply holds fast to itself. In the Shaolin tradition, people don't meditate to escape life. They meditate to awaken within it. In stillness, I gradually saw that I didn't need to fix every thought I had. I just needed to stop identifying with them. I didn't need to argue with my emotions. I just needed not to become their victim. Every time you sit down, stay silent, and watch your thoughts without judging or reacting, you are winning. Every time you catch yourself being pulled into a mental story and you choose to return to your breath, you are winning. No one sees those moments, no one claps for you, but it's in those small, quiet choices that true transformation begins. Because in the space between you and your thoughts, something miraculous happens. You stop living reactively and you begin to live intentionally. Let me ask you something, honestly. Are you willing to sit with yourself? Not to analyze, not to fix anything, but simply to observe and to begin again from that silence? If your answer is yes, I invite you to comment below, "I'm ready," or "I'm here." Not for me to see you, but for you to see yourself. You'll be surprised to discover that the moment you are truly present, all the inner chaos begins to quiet. And that is the moment you are no longer a victim of your mind. You become its guide, steady and silent, like a mountain in the middle of a storm. I used to believe that peace meant having no more negative thoughts. I thought that if I could just fix my mind, make it more right, more positive, then my inner world would finally be calm. But the more I tried to fix it, the heavier I felt. The mind wouldn't quiet down the way I hoped. In fact, it seemed to resist even more fiercely. I was like someone chasing wisps of smoke. The more I reached, the more empty-handed I became. And then there was a moment when I let go. Not of life, but of the need to change my mind. In that letting go, for the first time, I saw it clearly. Thoughts don't need to be fixed. They just need to be seen from a safe distance where I no longer get pulled into them, where I simply become the observer. The mind is a part of you, but it is not all of you. It's like a storyteller in your head, sometimes helpful, but often off track, exaggerated, or even made up. When you believe everything it says, you become a character in that story, living out a script of fear, doubt, or old memories. But if you take just one step back, if you simply observe those whispers, without stepping into the role they offer, you'll begin to notice something miraculous. Thoughts lose their power when you stop clinging to them. Just like a cloud drifting across the sky, it may be dark, it may be heavy, but it never harms the sky itself. Your mind may generate discomfort, but the deeper part of you, the place of awareness, remains untouched. The task isn't to interfere with every cloud, but to remember that you are the sky. And you only return to that truth when you no longer feel the urge to control or correct. What's interesting is that when you stop interfering, the mind begins to settle on its own, like a lake that calms only when no longer stirred. Stillness doesn't come from forcing the mind to stop. It comes from no longer letting it lead you. The more you step away from thought, the clearer and lighter you feel. Not because your mind has disappeared, but because you're no longer inside it. I don't need my mind to be perfect. I only need to keep a little space. In that space, I don't react. I just observe. I let everything come and go. No clinging, no resisting, no interpreting. Just silent awareness. And from that place, peace arises. Without promises, without conditions, without a single thought needing to change. I used to believe that in order to change my life, I had to do something grand. Read more books, learn new skills, search for powerful tools that could fix me. But then, in a moment so simple yet so profound, I sat down, closed my eyes, and quietly observed my breath. I didn't try to control it. I didn't force myself to breathe in any particular way. I simply became aware. I was just present with the rhythm of my breathing. And in that seemingly small act of simplicity, I touched something I had been searching for all along: inner stillness. The breath is the one companion that has been with you from the moment you were born until the day you leave this world. Yet it's also the thing we forget most easily in the rush of daily life. I lived for so long without truly knowing how I was breathing. Sometimes shallow, rushed, fragmented, sometimes tense without even realizing it. But when I began to return to the breath, to the subtle movement of my chest, to the stream of air passing through my nose, I discovered something powerful just by coming back here. Now I had already begun to transform. No grand reasons, no complex understanding needed. Just pause, breathe, and know that you are breathing. When the mind spins in circles, obsessing over the past or worrying about the future, the breath is the one thing always rooted in the present. It is the anchor, the lifeline that keeps you from being swept away by thousands of scattered thoughts. I no longer tried to solve negative emotions. I simply learned how to breathe through them. When anxiety came, I slowed my breath. When anger rose, I breathed. and didn't react right away. The breath became a bridge between my mind and body, guiding me inward and helping me stay aware in the tiniest of movements. It's strange and beautiful. Once you master the breath, the whole body begins to soften. The heartbeat calms. The energy inside becomes gentler. And from there, even your thoughts begin to quiet down, not because you forced them to, but because you're no longer feeding them with your reactions. Breath is not a technique. It is a homecoming, a quiet but powerful way of reminding you that you're still here, still alive, still present. And in that presence, your inner world begins to shift, not with drama, not with spectacle. Just because you are willing to breathe and know that you are breathing, one moment at a time, that is where true transformation begins. For me, and perhaps for you too. On my journey back to inner stillness, I used to believe everything began and ended in the mind. That if I could just control my thoughts, peace would naturally follow. But then I realized there was a quiet, essential doorway I had long overlooked. The body. Not to conquer it or force it to become stronger, but to listen to it and be fully present through every movement, every subtle gesture. My body, once merely a tool for getting things done, for moving around, suddenly became the key that unlocked an entirely new level of awareness. I started with things that seemed simple: standing with a straight spine, feeling my feet touch the ground, walking more slowly, breathing deeply while holding a still posture. Every time my body tensed, trembled, or resisted stillness, I could see my mind rising up, urging me to quit, making excuses, rationalizing discomfort. But when I didn't react, when I just stood there, breathing through the discomfort, something within me began to shift. Not physical strength as we usually define it, but the strength of presence. A kind of consciousness no longer governed by reflexes or impulses. The body never lies. It is the most honest mirror of your inner state. When you're tense, your shoulders rise. When you're anxious, your breath becomes shallow and fast. When you're lost in the past or future, even your steps fall out of rhythm with the present. I didn't need anyone to analyze that for me. I only needed to stop and listen. Through training my body, not to perform, but to connect, I learned how to soothe my nervous system, steady my mind, and keep myself aligned with the flow of reality. With every stable posture, every mindful repetition, the body became solid ground from which I could observe my thoughts without being swept away by them. I no longer lived solely in my head. I lived in my whole being, body, mind, and breath as one. Presence stopped being an abstract idea. It became a direct experience through a body that feels, breathes, and moves with conscious intention. The body's not a place to escape. It's a place to return to. You don't have to be a warrior in the world to stand like a warrior within yourself. Steady, unassuming, but full of vitality. And when you learn to fully inhabit your body, you no longer have to search for presence elsewhere. You are already here in every cell, every heartbeat, every breath, solid as a mountain, calm as water, and alive as your truest self. I used to believe that motivation was what would lead me to success. I waited for those days when inspiration surged to start a new habit, waited for the right moment to change myself, and thought that if I had enough positive emotion, I could overcome any obstacle. But then I realized motivation isn't as reliable as I once believed. It comes and goes like passing clouds, unpredictable, unstable, and easily blown away by a sluggish morning, a gray, rainy day, or a small wave of disappointment. I had started many things in bursts of excitement only to quit quietly, not because I lacked ability, but because I depended too much on the feeling of wanting to do it. That's when I learned there was something far more solid, far more dependable than motivation. Discipline. Not loud, not flashy, but quiet and unwavering. Discipline doesn't ask me if I feel like doing something. It simply reminds me this is what needs to be done, and I do it. Discipline doesn't wait for emotional approval. It only requires a clear decision and consistent repetition. Every morning I wake up early, not because I always feel energized, but because I've chosen to live by a rhythm stronger than emotion. I train, I meditate, I write, not because I'm always enthusiastic, but because I know these are the things that nourish me most deeply. Even when my mind whispers, just skip it today. I discover that discipline creates freedom. It sounds like a paradox, but the more disciplined I become, the less control my mind has over me. I no longer wait for everything to feel right before I act. I act to create the right feeling from within. The more I commit to simple, consistent practices each day, the more I build a quiet inner strength. And it is that strength that carries me through low moods, phases of confusion, and moments when, if I had relied solely on motivation, I would have given up. I no longer admire those who are always high score and high. I admire those who do the right thing even when no feeling is pushing them to. The ones who keep their rhythm in silence. The ones who understand that you don't have to feel good to do good. Discipline doesn't take away your freedom, it gives it back to you. It gives you the power to choose beyond the whims of the mind. And ever since I chose to live by discipline instead of chasing motivation, life has stopped being a cycle of disappointment from unmet expectations. It's become a steady flow, a path where I know exactly where I'm going, and every step, no matter how small, is bringing me closer to the person I want to become. There was a time when I tried to stay constantly busy, doing more, thinking more, moving faster, as if being loud enough on the outside would drown out everything echoing inside me. I didn't realize it then, but silence terrified me. I feared that in stillness, I would have to face the emptiness, the unresolved memories, the questions I didn't dare to answer, so I chose to ignore it all. I changed the channel. I spoke to everyone except myself, until one day everything became too heavy to carry and I was forced to stop. But instead of falling apart, something strange happened. I began to listen. Not to argue, not to fix, just to listen with my full, undivided presence. I listened to the fear within me. Not rushing to calm it, but simply giving it space to breathe. I listened to the exhaustion lodged deep in my body, not denying it, not fighting it, but acknowledging it was there. I listened to the loneliness that had been hidden beneath laughter, accomplishments, and fleeting relationships. And to my surprise, when I stopped running from these things, they weren't as frightening as I had imagined. They didn't come to destroy me. They were just waiting for me to be quiet enough to understand they are a part of me, but they are not all of me. In that act of listening, I no longer needed advice. I didn't need someone to rescue me. I just needed to be present with myself, genuinely, without rushing, like sitting beside someone in pain, not needing to say a word, just being there is its own form of healing. I started doing that for myself. And slowly, all the inner chaos began to settle, not because I had mastered control over it, but because I no longer treated it as the enemy. We are often taught how to push through emotions, how to bounce back after pain, but rarely are we taught to sit down and truly listen to what's unfolding in silence. What I've learned is this: what we need isn't another positive affirmation, but an honest space to simply feel, whether it's fragile, conflicted, or uncertain. Because only when it's listened to can what is unhealed begin to heal. And only when you pause long enough to truly hear yourself can you reconnect with the deepest part of you, the part that has never left, the part that's just been waiting for you to come home. There was a time when I believed the answer lay somewhere far away. I thought that if I could reach a more peaceful place, meet a wiser teacher, or embark on a profound enough spiritual journey, maybe then I would finally find peace. But after all the traveling, both literally and figuratively, I came to realize that what I was looking for was never about the destination. It was always about the direction. And that direction was never outward. It was always pointing inward. We live in an era where everything encourages us to look outside ourselves, toward goals, achievements, recognition. We chase milestones, standards, and invisible validations. And because of that, turning inward, pausing, feeling, listening becomes a foreign act. But I witnessed something miraculous unfold in the quietest moments when I stopped searching and began to realize I lacked nothing. I had simply forgotten myself for too long. I didn't need to go to a monastery. I didn't need to cut myself off from the world. All I needed was a small space, maybe a few minutes in the morning, a moment of stillness in the middle of the day, or an evening without the usual noise. In those pockets of time, I sat with myself. No phone, no schedule, no goal, just my breath, my body, and my non-judgmental attention. In that space, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone, nor live up to any image. I just needed to be. And surprisingly, in that simple presence, I felt more whole than ever before. We're often taught that personal growth is a forward motion, expanding, reaching further. But I've learned there's another kind of growth, not about getting bigger, but about going deeper, not about moving farther, but about coming closer to who we really are. And that journey is often the harder one because it has no map, no clear endpoint. It demands honesty, courage, and a silence deep enough to hear what everyday busyness always tries to drown out. I no longer believe peace waits at the end of a long road. I believe it's always here, in the present moment, in the breath you're taking now, in the stillness you can reach the moment you're ready to stop. And when I truly returned within, I realized I never needed to go anywhere. I had always been home. I had just forgotten how to get back. But once you rediscover that path, the world around you no longer needs to change for you to be at peace because that peace already lives within you. I used to think mindfulness was something lofty, a state reserved for monks or those who had spent decades in seclusion on a mountaintop. I believed it was something to be attained, something to be studied through books, something that required years of intense discipline before it could be touched. But then, as I began returning to myself, through breath, through listening, through simply being present in the smallest of daily actions, I came to realize mindfulness is not a philosophy to understand. It is a way of life to be lived, not complicated, not abstract, just something you begin to notice if you slow down enough to see it. Mindfulness doesn't happen when you grasp a profound quote. It happens in the moment you pour a glass of water without thinking about what comes next. It doesn't live in lectures or theories. It lives in your footsteps when you can feel your soles touching the earth. Mindfulness isn't something you achieve and hold on to. It's something you practice daily by returning to the present, by not losing yourself in the noise and clutter of everything else. And if there's one thing I've learned through all my seeking, it's this: mindfulness doesn't need to be explained. It needs to be experienced. When I live mindfully, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be honest. I don't have to eliminate every thought. I just have to not be swept away by them. I don't need to force every emotion to feel good. I just need to give it enough space to rise and pass. Life still has its pressures, its challenges, but instead of reacting from old habits, worry, anger, avoidance, I pause, take a deep breath, and choose to respond from clarity. I can't always do it, but every time I do, I feel a clear shift, lighter, steadier, deeper. Mindfulness doesn't make you special or separate you from the world. It draws you into life more truthfully. You still do the ordinary things, wash the dishes, write the emails, listen to someone speak, but now you do them with full presence. No more doing one thing while thinking about another. No more being there, but not really there. When you are mindful, you don't need to change what you do. You just do it with your whole attention. And suddenly, even the simplest moments become rich with meaning. I no longer see mindfulness as a goal to reach, but as a way to walk through each day. Whether the day is turbulent or still, I choose to be present in the smallest details, because I've learned that only by living fully in the present can I truly be alive. And that, more than anything, is the doorway to peace. Not something to search for, but something to live with minute by minute.